Okay guys, welcome back. For some of you, you'll be watching this video right on the heels of another one. Sorry that you have to listen to my disgusting voice twice in a row. For my other class, this will be the first video that you'll be watching for the day. Again, we're looking at ways to understand how authors are presenting material so that you can more easily and readily figure out how it is they're trying to communicate with you and know how to predict information that's coming so that you can kind of put your brain in that type of reading mode, I guess, really is what we're doing. Also, in terms of writing, these will set up some of the things we might be doing in some of our essays. As always, I'm going to put these PowerPoints on our Blackboard page so that you can review them at your leisure. Okay, so thought patterns use transitions to show relationships between ideas in a paragraph, a passage, or textbook chapter. Okay, so learning how to recognize them in all of those different situations helps you kind of figure out what you're looking at and what you need to do. Okay, so compare, contrast, cause and effect, generalization, and example. Okay, we're familiar with at least two of those based on the essays we've done and introductions. Cause and effect we don't kind of look at in this class, but becomes pretty important in 101 and other types of writing that you'll do. Okay. All right, so a comparison shows similarities, okay? A contrast shows differences. You know this, of course, because of the essay that we've been doing, okay? And here's some comparison transitions, okay? So if you haven't turned in your essay yet, and you're struggling with some transitions that you might want to use, here are some that you can use, okay? And here's some contrast ones. Now, I said I don't prefer the point-by-point method of writing a compare-contrast paragraph because I run out of contrast transitions, but here you've got a bunch, so maybe that will help you out if you're going with that method. Just a reminder, if it's not too late, you do have to use one of the two methods, point by point or one side at a time, and only one of those two methods. So if you're still working on that essay, make sure that you're conforming to those expectations. Okay. Now, recognizing how those work and looking for them can help you realize when authors are doing both. Okay. In this paragraph, we have compare and contrast. Okay. Although yoga and Pilates share similar characteristics, an important difference exists. Okay. Both yoga and Pilates are low-impact forms of exercise that improve posture, flexibility, and contraction. Okay, so both, similarity. However, let's just know that now we're moving on to the contrast. The primary goal of Pilates is to strengthen the midsection and buttocks. On the other hand, okay, contrast, yoga does not focus on any one part of the body. Rather, yoga works on the opposing muscles of the entire body, okay? So those transitions let us know that some of this paragraph is showing the similarities, and then we're going to switch over to the differences and show how these two things are different, okay? So again, if I'm reading a textbook and I'm outlining, knowing that and recognizing that helps me kind of jot down what I want to take out of that paragraph, okay? Now, again, cause and effect is not the essay that we do in this class. It is done in some other of my colleagues' classes. Okay, cause and effect arguing is a really important technique that you might end up doing for your argumentative essay. It's always really important when you're looking at cause and effect to show that you have to prove the relationship between the cause and the effect. Okay, cause states why something happens, and effect states the outcome or result. Okay, so you can't just say, I failed my math class because my teacher was terrible, okay? You have to prove the relationship between those two things, all right? A lot of people make that mistake when they get into argumentative writing of confusing chronology with causality, which is a fallacy that you'll probably study in 101. Okay? What happens with that fallacy is that people assume that because one thing preceded another, the thing that preceded it caused the other. Okay? With cause and effect, you have to prove that it's the case. Just because something happened before something else doesn't mean that it was the cause of that thing. Okay? Just a little tip as you move on to 101. Okay, but again, here's some of the words that you should look for when you're looking at cause and effect. Okay, this will be on our Blackboard page, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide. Okay, and something else that we're probably familiar with is generalization and example. Okay. We've talked a lot in this class about moving from generals just to specific. We've talked about how it's an introduction strategy that you can use, where you begin with a general idea and then get down to some specifics. This is something you can also use in your paragraphs. Okay? As technology evolves, it saves time. There's a topic sentence which reveals a generalization. Okay, now we're going to get into some examples to help prove that. For example, broadband internet access cuts down on the time needed to access information on the World Wide Web. I can't imagine what we'd be doing right now if we didn't have the internet and distance learning to kind of get us through this crisis. Okay, here's some examples that you might want to look for when you're looking at examples. God, that was a redundant sentence. Sorry, guys. And now I think I've skipped a slide. Give me 1 second. No, we're good. Okay. All right. So often textbooks will define new words and special terms and then give you examples. Okay. So we've already talked about how to read a textbook. Look for those terms in bold or italics. I know a lot of people come to me and say, man, textbooks are written just to confuse you. And it can seem that way, especially with a new subject. But really, they follow patterns to try to help you process that information. Nobody's going to buy the textbook if it doesn't convey something, right? So when they introduce a new topic or a new term, you might see examples that kind of help illustrate that term, okay? So use the glossary in the back, but then read that paragraph and see kind of how they might do that so that you can figure that out, okay? So down in the lower left-hand corner, emblems are body gestures that directly translate into words or movements, okay? For example, okay, so moving to the right now. For example, a person may give up a high-paying job in the city and take a lower-paying job in a small town. Okay, so we've got definitions, we've got example patterns that you can look at there. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 more second to kind of look at the differences between those two because it looks like the next slide is going to ask you to apply that yourself. Okay, so we've got cause and effect, we've got compare and contrast, we've got definition and an example. When stock prices fully reflect information that is available to investors, the stock market is efficient. In contrast, when the stock prices do not reflect all information, the stock market is inefficient. Okay, so take a look at that transition. I'll give you a second to think. Is this cause and effect? Compare and contrast. Definition and an example. Come on, be active, guys. Figure it out. Just like reading a textbook, you have to be active learning and take responsibility for your learning. So everybody should have an answer. Okay, of course it's a compare contrast, right? In contrast lets us know that they're showing the differences between these two things. Hopefully everybody answered that and answered it correctly. Okay, so just some of the terms that we've looked at, some of the information that we've come across. Again, these slides will be available on Blackboard so you can review them. Hopefully that you are. Okay, and then some of the other things that we've talked about. Okay, my Monday, Wednesday, and my Tuesday, Thursday class are on different schedules right now. So what happens next may be different for both of you. I'm not assigning a homework thing in this video, but for both of you, there will be instructions on what you need to do moving forward on our Blackboard page. Okay, so make sure you take note of that and complete whatever is assigned because the school is mandating that everybody logs in during a regular class period. There will be something to complete for every class period, and you will need to turn it in to get credit for being here. Okay, that's all I have for this PowerPoint slide, although there'll be other things for both classes that we need to do today, but hopefully this helps you kind of process your textbooks and move on. Thanks, bye.